Good evening, everyone. It is 5:30. Tonight we're going to do the workshop first because there's items on the workshop that we're going to vote on during the meeting. So beginning with the workshop, the first thing on here is the fiscal year budget workshop stipend proposal.
So, Madam President, members of our Board of Education, as we do every year and by state law, the local school board has to approve the FY16 budget by the end of September. So, as we've been having budget workshops for quite some time, tonight I'll welcome Mr. Brown and Colonel Stanger to the podium or to the front. And Mr. Brown is going to lead us, as he always does, and do an overview. And one of the things, if you remember, that we did not have back in 2020 when I arrived was an actual budget workbook. I'm proud of the work that Mr. Brown has done to create an extremely transparent document, not only the process that we go through, timelines, but also all the expenditures with justification, revenue with justification. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Brown for a high-level overview, and then that'll be part one. And then part two will be the discussion around athletic and non-athletic stipends. So, Mr. Brown, Colonel Stanger, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Paluski and members of the board. We'll go through the budget book first. And for some of you that have been on the board, you'll know that this is information that we update yearly for you, and you've seen, but we incorporate the prior year data to show, just to sort of set the background, prior year data drives about 95% of our ensuing year's budget. So that's why the prior year data is most important. So we'll be looking at that and looking at our trend data and see how that affects our budget for the ensuing year. So on page 2, of course, is our mission, vision, moral purpose, and graduate profile that the district has adopted. On page 3, this is board of directors, and this is what you all focus on to set the direction for the district. You all are familiar with that, but we'll go on through and get to the meat of it. Page 4 and 5, of course, is dedicated to board members and the zones that you represent. Page 6 is the superintendent's profile. Page 7 is the North Little Rock School District Finance Office and our organizational chart. And this is the makeup of my office and how we operate on a daily basis. And I'll note that the people under Ms. Edwards there are finance personnel, and then we have 2 coordinators that are also in my department. Ms. Estes for coordinator of federal, state, and special grants over to the right. And also Ms. Kathy Hale. Let me catch up my screen up here. Ms. Kathy Hale is the student software and data coordinator. And you know, sometimes there's questions about why is Ms. Hale in my department. And Ms. Hale is the systems administrator for our data, for our student data. But the student data drives our funding, 100%. We have to make sure that the data we're reporting to ADE is, number one, accurate. It's the most accurate picture that we can represent, and it also determines every piece of financial data that ADE uses to determine the amount of funding we get. So the most critical part of her job is tied to finance, and that's why she is under my umbrella in the finance office. Page 8 is definitions, and you'll hear some acronyms that we'll discuss tonight. And I'll just hit a few of the highlights here. The first 2 there, average daily membership, we refer to that as ADM, but that is the average of your daily membership that's enrolled in your school. ALE refers to Alternative Learning Environment. RMAC refers to the Arkansas Medicaid Administrative and Claiming Process. The assessment and local taxes, that is the tax base that that funds our millage rate to fund our school. On page 9, categorical funding, and we've had a lot of discussion about that in the recent months, but that refers to our ESA funding, our ELL funding, our PD funding, and our ALE funding. Those 4 funds make up our categorical. ESA, ALE, ELL. ELL stands for English Language Learners. ESA stands for Enhanced Student Achievement funding, and that used to be NSL, which used to be NSLA. So if you've been on the board and you've heard those NSLA, NSL, it has it's transformed into ESA. So also declining enrollment, the third item there on page 9, that's funding that we receive when our student enrollment declines. ADE recognizes that we engage teachers in contracts prior year to make sure we have a full staff in the ensuing year. So if our enrollment declines, they do provide half of the funding for student ADM that we lose, and that's a short-term fix in order for the district to trim staff as needed and as we have through attrition or as we need to. Again, ELL, the bottom item there is English Language Learners. Page 10 is our Enhanced Student Achievement. That's the ESA funding, and that's the one we just talked about that has changed names a couple of times. Federal funding, that's a large umbrella, but it encompasses several funds that we receive funding for. All originate from the U.S. Department of Education, and that includes, I've got a list of those in the last paragraph, Carl Perkins, Title I, 2A, 3, 4A, sometimes 5. We have not received that recently. 6B, which is special ed, RMAC, which we talked about was the Medicaid fund, McKinney-Vento, federal preschool, and of course the ESSERs, when they were funded, were out of federal funding. The funding matrix, that is a funding method that the Arkansas Department of Education has developed in order to arrive at the cost per student that, or the funding per student that they will fund public schools for. That's a matrix where they plug in how many teachers a 500 school student school should have, how many principals, how many assistant principals, how many secretaries, how many nurses, and then that derives the number of, that derives your funding per student that they fund us for each year. On page 11, the one that I'll point out to you will be the professional development funding. That PD funding is a categorical funding that is, it's a categorical funding that is used specifically and restricted for professional development for teachers. On page 12, I have definitions there for Title I, 2, 3, 4, and 6B on 13. Those are some of the federal funds that we talked about, but those are individual definitions of each program and what those funds can be used for. And then the last one on page 13 I want to mention is the uniform rate of tax, and it's also referred to as URT, and you'll see that on our state funding formula. It is, it's the URT is what the state uses to guarantee funding to school districts, our state foundation funding. And what they use is 98% collection rate on your taxes applied to the first 25 mills of your local property tax. They guarantee that you'll be funded at least at the 98% collection rate of your taxes on the first 25 mills. And we've recently passed a millage. Our millage is at 52.3 mills. So the first 25 are guaranteed at 98%. The difference between 25 and 52.3, that is not guaranteed by the state, and that's what we're dependent on taxpayers for providing to us. On page 14, these are best financial practices that we follow in the school district. And if you'll look there, we follow, it says we use resources as efficiently as possible in as many areas, including the following. So managing structures, efficient delivery of educational services, administrative and instructional technologies, facility construction, facility maintenance, student transportation, food service, cost controls, athletics, and the list goes on. But we use the best financial practices when we are maximizing our funding for student resources. We have, the bottom portion there says we have established procedures for purchase orders, receiving revenue, travel reimbursement, and for monitoring our reporting to the Department of Education. On page 15, we have a month-by-month recap there for you on our budget process, what we do each month. And it begins in the month of July. And I would, starting in June to the end of September, that's finance's marathon season. That's when we're closing one year, finalizing payrolls for one year, getting contracts ready for the new year, opening our books for the new year. We're doing cycle 8, cycle 9, cycle 1 reports. So that's our marathon season. That's, and my team, we know, we've had a discussion about this, and we even limit the amount of time off. There are certain times where we call them blackout dates. No one can be off. And then there are certain weeks in that period of time where we allow one person out of the office at a time. So, but this just recaps month by month what we do in order to prepare and monitor the budget and open and close a year. And that process is on page 15 and 16. On page 16, you've heard me refer to the word cycle report. Cycle report, that is reports that we are required to submit to ADE on specific time frames that reports student and financial data. So cycle 1, my office handles, and I'd say my office, I mean the finance part of my office. Cycles 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, Ms. Hale and Ms. Thomas handle those cycle reports with additions from mine. So there's small portions of finance that get reported in every cycle, and small portions of students' data that gets reported in every cycle. But the primary responsibility for cycles 2 through 7 rely with Ms. Hale. Cycles 1, 8, and 9 reside with the finance team. And you'll see also we've got the indicated windows there. Just cycle 9 is the final close, and you'll see the window is August 15th through August the 31st. That's the only time that you can submit to ADE your cycle 9 report. And so, and likewise, the other cycles have the indicated date ranges there. And some people, and you'll see cycle 1, that's our budget report, and you'll notice it says September 15th through September 30th. That is the reporting time for ADE on budgets. And there's been some discussion in the past about, can we do that earlier? Well, we can work on creating the budget earlier, but we cannot prepare it in the system and submit it to ADE except for this window that we've established, that ADE has established. Okay. The next item, page 17, this is your projected legal balance worksheet. And several years ago, if you'll recall, I introduced this to the board, and the board was very interested in this report, and we decided to include it in our monthly financials that you all get each month. But the way this works is you'll notice this is actually July's report, July of 2025. It's the first month of fiscal year 2026. And you know it's July's report because if you'll look above the word July in that first column, it says actual. And what we do is we do projected expenditures through each month and projected revenues through each month. And once the month completes, we change it to actual figures and change the header to actual. So you can see, as we gauge how the year's going, you can see as a board member how that year is going. So in your September board packet, regular monthly packet, you'll get one, and the words above July and August will have the words actual above them. And then the figures in those columns will be actual figures versus projected figures. And again, we do this so that we can monitor and make sure that we're not in a declining legal balance situation at the end of the year, and that we're monitoring our expenses throughout the year. Okay, so let me pause right there and say, are there any questions as of this point?
I was hoping you did.
Okay.
Mr. Taylor, you have a question? No. Ms. Wonkum?
I'm all set.
Ms. McLean?
I just have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the funding, like on page 8 and 9, I was concerned about the funding, for the students who were in day treatment. And I was wondering if those fundings were still maintained because the building, they changed in our students, and I was wondering where our students would be going, and if they would be, did you still maintain that funding for that program?
So, yeah, it's my understanding. I may pass here to Dr. Stoll, but it's my understanding we do have some limited slots for day treatment that we are still funding, and then there are other spots. The day treatment program that we were attending, I believe, closed?
Closed.
Okay.
Two day treatment programs closed. Centers for Youth and Families, and then Horizons, that was at Lynch Drive Elementary School, the old Lynch Drive. So we have many fewer spots than we had
Okay,
before.
I was just asking if we still maintain the funding
That would be it.
Oh, just like keep the money like in
Do
that
we
budget?
still have the money?
in the budget.
Oh, okay, got it.
So
That's
it's used in the special ed budget, yes. It's
Okay,
still,
I thought I was concerned
yeah.
because last week she had told us that the building had moved to Jacksonville, but I didn't know if where our students were going and if we still maintained that funding for them.
yes. It was being funded, so day treatment was funded 50%, roughly 50% out of operating and 50% out of special ed funds. The reduction in seats, the reduction in expenditures we're having for day treatment, of course, the operating dollars stay with operating, but the special education dollars that are earmarked for special education stay with special education.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. West?
I don't have any questions, I'm good.
Okay.
I have a quick one.
Yes.
On that page, under projected January, under other, why is it negative? Under January, under expenditures.
Oh, there are some journal entries we have to do throughout the year and January is about the time that we do those journal entries. That journal entry may not be necessary. Last year it was, and you'll notice on the final one for last year. It's in there. We have to monitor and evaluate during January. What we're doing, we've put it in here as a possibility. If it's not needed, we won't do that. And your actual one, when we get to your February board meeting, if that goes away, or if there's a different number that's less, you'll know that not as much was needed. Or
Got it.
so we're just projecting that it will be needed, but it may not be needed.
Got it.
Madam President, can I ask
Yes.
a quick question? The operating funding that's not being used with the day trip, do you know how much that is?
It's about 300,000.
And we have that available to do it?
Well, I'll take that back. I mean, roughly, it was about 600,000 total for day treatment. We still have some slots that we're funding, so the operating portion of day treatment was 300,000. We're still using some seats, so I would say a portion of that is still being used for day treatment, and then the other portion of that just remains in the operating budget.
Okay. Can you give me an estimate how much that is?
You have that? Yes.
I think currently, I can give you roundabout, it's about 150,000 that we're spending total for day treatment, and half of that money, so 75,000 would be operating, and then 75,000 would be special ed monies, because there's regular ed and special ed students at day treatment.
225?
Yes, sir.
And I'll add to that, Mr. Brown and Dr. Stoll, based upon the needs of what we're hearing from our school leaders, there's a need for day treatment in our school district. See Ms. Stumpenhouse shaking her head right there. We're looking right now at the city. Some of the city has some vacant space. So Dr. Stoll will be looking at some vacant space that's in the city to see if we can't house our own day treatment so that we can support our schools with students that have some very severe needs. So we'll bring you an update as soon as we know more.
Now, I have a question about
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
Really fast. Would that mean we would have to bring in specialized staff to staff that facility?
Yeah, and probably without going down
Right.
a lot of detail, is what I would suggest is let Dr. Stoll and I do some homework, and
Gotcha, okay.
it would probably be better if we just come back and do a whole presentation just around day treatment, what it would cost, how many students, what kind of services, because there are a lot of services that you need with some severe students. So if you would allow us to kind of
Oh,
get
yeah,
all
most
that,
definitely.
we'll be glad to come
I
back
was just
and
wondering, just
give you some more.
curious, will we have to maybe have
Yes,
specialized
yes,
staff to have
yes.
for that specialized?
Yes,
And-
which is why it's so expensive.
Right.
Can I ask Dr. Stowe a question?
Sure you can.
Dr. Stowe, with some of the students not having severe needs, could we not place them on the alternative learning session?
That's what we've done with a lot of the students that came back from day treatment. When we can, we've placed them in the ALE. And then we've got some private school options too that we've been looking at for like students with the severe autism. So we're doing some other placements to try and help so that they all aren't back at the regular campus.
I was just looking, I know the building is kind of empty, so I thought maybe a section of that could be used for, you know, something of that need, rather than us trying to look for a building in all those spaces down there.
Sure.
Just a suggestion.
Sure, we'll look at it all, Ms. Williams. It's a good thought.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stoll.
Okay. All right. So if we could, we're on page 18. And you'll notice I include the net legal balance graph for you, trend data, so you can see the historical part of this. But what ADE wants to know, they want to see is a steady net legal balance. Net legal means funds 1, 2, and 4. Those are what we refer to as operating funds. So that takes out Fund 3, which is your building fund. That takes out Fund 6, which is your federal funds. That takes out Fund 8, which is your child nutrition funding. So it leaves Funds 1, 2, and 4. And so at the end, annually you all pass a resolution and allow a transfer of surplus funds that are in excess, and we've recently raised that to 13.2 million. So anything over 13.2, we transfer to our building fund for capital improvement projects. And what they like to see is a nice steady graph there indicates financial stability. And if you'll notice, there's in the past we've had quite a bit of activity where it was been up and down. That's what we don't like to see. But we like to see the nice steady balance, the net legal balance there. This also ties back to this projected legal balance worksheet that we just went over on page 17. And if you'll notice the last box there under on page 17 under period 13, the very bottom says 18 million. So right now we're projecting a legal balance of 18 million. And you'll see I've got 13.2 at the bottom, and we subtract that out to find a difference. So our zero for the year is the 13.2, and we're measuring how are we faring as we progress through the year. And again, this net legal graph is what we report to ADE at the end of our fiscal year, and that's done August the 31st, which we've talked about recently as well. On page 19, yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
When we have talked in the past, we were talking about the air conditioners and how much that's costing, because they're, you know, we had the track at the high school and some of these major expenses that come up. And I would love to see us put a percentage on here, like another line, percentage over net legal that we're dedicating just to those things, so that when it's lumped in the building fund, we think we have 32 million, but really 5 million of that we need to air conditioning, do the athletic field, whatever else. I would really love to see us project what those expenses are going to be and separate that somehow, so we don't.
Like a maintenance fund.
So
Something like
we've
that.
actually
Fund.
done that. Last year was the first year we did it, and we have line itemed our building fund. So what, if you'll allow me at a future workshop, I'll bring in that. Well, I'll take the building fund, and then I'll go over that with you. But we're doing some line items on big ticket things that we have to do, like HVAC, the turf and track replacement, jumbotrons, both on the football field and in the arena. Those big ticket items, we're creating a line in our building fund. And so what I'm doing is, like, the life expectancy on turf is 8 to 10 years. So we know what it costs now to replace turf. So each year when you all sweep that savings over to the building fund, I'm going to put a percentage of that savings. So if we're doing a 10-year track and turf replacement, I'm going to put 1/10 of that, of the cost of that on each line. We've started that, and so I'll bring that to you, and we'll discuss that at another workshop.
Perfect,
But
thank
yes,
you.
yes. Okay. All right, on page 19, here's an acronym, 3/4 average ADM. ADM, average daily membership. So that's what the ADE does. They look at day one of school, and they see how many students are enrolled. That's called your membership, your daily membership. Then they look at day two, how many total students are enrolled. Day three. All the way through, we have 176 days now, because we're on the minute calendar. They look at all 168 days and the enrollment on each day, and then they take the first 3 quarters and they average your daily membership. So they count the number of days in your first 3 quarters, add those up in the first 3 quarters, divide by your number of days. That calculates your average daily membership. That number drives your funding from ADE for the next school year. So,
I'm sorry. What does the October count?
so very good question. There's an October 1 count that drives other sources of funding.
Okay.
So the ADM drives our state foundation funding. The October 1 drives some specialized funding, like for special education,
Okay.
child nutrition, ELL. So there's two different measures that they use, and some of it is, used for current year funding, and then the ADM is used, that's prior year data that's used for current year funding, but it funds different sources of revenue for the district. So if you look at the trend data for our ADM, we ended fiscal year 2025 at 7180.23. That is our three-quarter ADM for fiscal year 25, which sets the revenue for state foundation funding for us for fiscal year 26.
You said the total enrollment again. It's kind of small. I can't see.
It is. It's 7180.23. 7,180.23.
That was the ending for 24?
That was ending for 25.
25.
Fiscal year
I was
25.
just looking at this. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And then I've done a little box there for you just to show a 1-year loss of 70 students, a 2-year loss of 403, 5-year loss of 800, 10-year loss of 1,259, 15-year loss of 1,634. And, as we're in competing times right now with public schools are, with charters, privates, homeschool. There's a lot of opportunities out there. And so this year we held our own. We still had a loss of students, but it wasn't as large as what we've had in the past few years. All right, on page 20, this is our state foundation funding, and the state they actually changed the format of it this year, which allowed me, it usually comes to me in an Adobe format, which it's hard to manipulate that unless you're just doing it with a pen. But this year it came in an Excel format. So what I was able to do, you'll notice the yellow column is our fiscal year 26 funding. And what I've done in the gray column, I inserted that and lined up our fiscal year 25 funding. So you could see side by side what we're looking at. So this is our #1 funding document from ADE, so I'd just like to go over this with you. So line 1, excuse me, the first 3 lines refer to charters, and those don't apply to us. Line 1 is our 2024 real assessment, and that is the assessment from the county that drives our 25 tax collection that's paid to us in fiscal year 26. So we're 2 years behind on tax payments reaching the school district, okay? So this 24 real assessment, you'll see it increase from 702 million to 733 million. That's line 1. The personal assessment increased from 191 million to 193 million. And the utility assessment grew from 75 million to 77 million. So the line 4 is a total of lines 1, 2, and 3. So our total assessment increased from 969 million to 1 billion. Okay, that's our assessment data. And that could be, and what causes increases in assessment data? That could be new homes being built. That could be new businesses coming in. That could be, could also be the reassessments that the county's doing on property, on patrons' property. So if your assessment from your increases there, that reflects in this number as well. So the overall assessment for our district grew, and you'll notice that assessment, our millage, our tax collection is based off of 20% of our total assessment. So our assessment there is $1 billion for July of 20 for the total assessment for 2024 in the fiscal year 26 column, but they'll multiply that by 20%, and that's what our tax base, our millage base, gets multiplied against for tax collection purposes. And line number 5, 98% URT. You'll notice that URT is what we talked about earlier, uniform rate of tax. That is the 24.6 million. That is the guaranteed, the state's guarantee to North Little Rock, based on our assessment and based on 98% collections. So if we don't collect 98% of our taxes, total taxes, the state will make up that difference to the tune of $24.6 million. That would be our limit. Likewise, if we collect 99%, we have to give the state 1% back. They balance to 98% every year. If we collect 100%, we have to give 2% back. The historical trend of that is we don't collect 98%. We collect normally around the upper 90s%. So the state has to kick in money in order to get us to our 98% URT level.
Can I just jump in real quick? And
Yes.
for some reason in my mind, I had that it was on the total meals, but you were talking earlier and you said it's not on the total meals, it's on the first 24 meals.
25 meals.
25 meals, okay. The first 25 meals, so the other 25 or so 28 meals, just we get that as it comes in too?
That's correct.
So,
That's correct. It's based on the collection rate.
okay.
And when Mr. Beardsley comes to us, when he comes to us and he says, I project you need this many meals, he looks at our collection rate because he knows it's 100% dependent on your collection rate because it's a debt meal. It's not an operation meal, that 25 meals, that the initial, that's guaranteed by the state. So he knows that we have to collect sufficient money. So when he does his calculations to say, how many meals would we need for our $70 million construction project, he says, I project 4. He does that based off of our collection rate that he researches with the county. If he were to base it off 100% rate, we'd never collect enough tax to make that 4 meal payment. So there are years when we collect more and we do better, and there are years where we collect less, where we do worse. But on average, he is very good about projecting that and giving you all a number, a projection number that we can afford. So, yes, that's a good question, though. First 25 guaranteed. The other debt service meals are not guaranteed, and they're based on our collection rate. If you'll look at lines 7 and 8, those are miscellaneous funds that are calculated. Those are calculated by ADE. Those are small funds, but they're usually related to county government funds that are projected that we'll receive. It's an excess funding. Part of our tax dollars go to fund the county governments as well. If there's excess funding that they can turn back to us that they don't use, they do. It's usually a small amount, but the projected amount this year is $3,900. Then you'll have some data there. Let's look at lines 9, 10, and 11. Lines 9, 10, and 11 are quarter ADM, so you'll see 24's 3/4 ADM, 25's 3/4 ADM, 3/4, and then you'll see 25's 4/4 ADM. They collect that data, but line 10 is what is used to drive the funding. That's our 3/4 ADM from last year. And that's the last number that was on that historical graph that we were looking at, the 7180.23. That line drives the funding that's below. So the top part of this page, top part of page 20 is data, and the bottom fund of the page is funding. And the funding, most of the funding below is driven by line 10, but there's some other, there's another line here that we'll get to in just a moment that drives data as well, that drives funding as well. So if you look at the second column in the data section at the top, per student revenue, 34.2877. Per student total funding amount, 8162. Per student state foundation funding, 4733. So line 16 tells you last year it was 7771. Line 16. That was our state foundation funding. So the amount of revenue we receive, we're guaranteed per student. This year it's going up to 8162. And we normally see an increase. We normally don't see an increase like that, but the state has increased that because they're treating health insurance payment benefits for staffing a little different this year. They're handling that differently. I don't know, do you want to add anything?
I was about to say,
on
what
that?
what does that mean?
So this will be the last year that they lump that payment into the per student funding. Next, what happens, they send us, whatever the funding is, we pay the insurance premiums for all our staff that the district, i.e. the state, provides. Next year, that per student funding actually goes down. First time in a while, but what the state is doing is they're taking that 8162 and cutting the insurance premium payments right off the top. They're keeping it, and that they're going to pay it themselves. We don't know what the rules look like yet, but you'll see per student funding next year actually drop. So this year, hey, it's an increase, it looks good, but we're paying the bill. Next year, we don't pay the bill. They just cut it right off the top and give us what's left over. And that will be a different kind of projection because the state hasn't done that before.
Yep, so next year when we're sitting here, the FY26, that 8162, it will actually decrease.
Yep.
And that's the first time that's happened since I've been in finance. But they're taking an expense with it. They're going to take the health insurance premiums for employees with it. So, but we're still waiting on the rules and how that's going to apply and how that will apply to us.
We don't know what the premiums will be next year either, so.
Okay, and then if you look at line 18, that's a data point that drives funding below. So the ALE, Alternative Learning Environment, FTE, full-time student equivalent, so full-time equivalent. You'll notice that for fiscal year 25, we were funded, so that number 162, that's actually a 24 number. So in 24, we were funded for 162 students that we served in ALE in fiscal year 24. In fiscal year 25, which is our 26th funding data, we served 151.15. So our ALE funding this year will actually decrease because we serve less kids in ALE. That drives the funding that is tied to line 31 below, and we'll get to that in just a moment. ELL students, line 19, 687. So last year we served 687 ELL students, and you'll notice in parentheses that says current year. That's a current year data source that gets reported in October 1. So after we submit our cycle 2, we'll have ELL data that will populate in the next state foundation funding aid notice that comes out. That number is a current year number and not a previous year number. That's why there's a dash there, a 0. It's not populated yet, and they grab our current year number to students, free and reduced lunch. That tells you how many students are marked free and reduced lunch. Last fiscal year 24, it was 54.14. If you'll recall, last year when we recertified, it was 53.52. And we were concerned about getting to that threshold for our ESA funding, but we met it. Even though the number decreased, we met our threshold, our funding stayed the same. But that number on line 20 drives your ESA rate on 34 and your ESA funding on 33. Our state wealth index, line 22, you'll see that actually increased. That's a good thing for us because that index, that state wealth index for North Little Rock, is what derives the matching grants that the state provides to us specifically on our construction matching. Our $20.8 million that came to us through facilities, that's derived through our wealth index. They take that wealth index, they have their formula that they have their formula, so they take your projected cost of your construction, apply the wealth index, the 27% basically, and they provide you 27% of the total cost. That didn't decrease, so that's good for us. And then lines 25, 26, and 27, those are data points, and so our district square miles is 28.65 square miles. Millage is 48.3, and you'll notice on line 27 in fiscal year 26, the new millage rate of 52.3 that goes on the books in January of 2026. Well, they'll collect that through 2026, and we'll start receiving that in 2027. So any questions about the data portion of this, and then we'll look at the funding portion of that. Everybody good? Okay. All right. So the funding portion of this, state line 28, you'll see that in 25, fiscal year 25, it was 32.5 million. Now it's 33.9 million. We had a decrease in student enrollment, which logically would tell you we'd have a decrease in student foundation, but the rate at which we're funded increased, as you saw up here on line 16, from 771 to 8162. So the loss rate of students did not outpace the gain in our student per pupil funding. So we're going to see an increase there of
The cautionary tale with that, though, is next year.
Next year.
We know it goes down.
Yeah.
And so enrollment numbers will impact either way.
On line 29, the 98% URT, that's the calculation the state performs to find out how much do they have to kick in to guarantee your 98% of your first 25 meals. And you'll see the state kicked in fiscal year 25. They kicked in roughly $450,000 to make sure that we were 98% collection on first 25 meals. That's an actual, they monitor our tax collections this year. So throughout the year, we'll get another statement that will have that amount populated on it at a later date. The Educational Excellence Trust Fund, that's actually included in our state foundation funding line. It's not additional funds that it's a line item in there, but that's been an important item for the legislature to monitor over the past, and so they include that on our funding formula. But that's that little asterisk there, or the number 3. They explain that it's actually a part of your state foundation funding and not additional funding in addition to. Line 31 is our ALE funding. So our ALE funding this year is $5,086 per ALE student times line 18. And that line 18 above was where we saw the 151.15. So our ALE funding will actually go down. It'll go down to 787,000, down from 823,000, and that's due to serving less students in ALE. English language learners is $366 per student times line 19. Line 19 says we're getting 151 students. So if you take the 151 times the 366, that would, well, so that number in the 26 column is 0 right now. That's why it's 0 on this fund. If you were to, when we report our cycle 2 in October, we populate that number. ADE will populate the funding on this matrix. So, but for fiscal year 25, you can back into that by using that same method. It was line 19 times 366, that'd be the 251. Enhanced student achievement, you'll see line 20 times 34. We're expecting a small increase in ESA funding. And you'll see our ESA rate went from 1,076. The state increased it from 1,076 per student to $1,103 per student. So that tells you there, even though we had a small decline in our free and reduced lunch on line 20 above, we did receive an increase which outpaces that decrease in the number of students, and that allows us to see a small increase in that funding. Line 37, professional development, $271,000 last year, $294,000 for fiscal year 26. They did increase the professional development funding. The declining enrollment funding, line 43. You'll see it's $1.2 million in fiscal year 25. We knew that would be decreasing because the declining enrollment is funding that is limited to only 2 years of funding. And if you'll look back, we had some drastic drops in student that created a larger funding source, but they only fund it on 2-year basis, and at half of that. So that's fading out. And of course, what that means is if we have smaller declining enrollment funding, that means we're seeing smaller declines in our student ADM. So that's a good thing. And that's a good thing as long as you're balancing the budget along the way to trim expenditures to match that loss of revenue, which we have been doing. Teacher, line 47 is our teacher salary equalization funding. That was funding back when Governor Hutchinson was governor, and he wanted to have an increase. He brought the $36,000 minimum teacher pay. That's the funding that was established and given to districts to meet that new funding. And then line 48, the LEARNS teacher minimum salary, $3.3 million. That line there is what was implemented with LEARNS to meet the minimum $50,000. Both of these lines are based on were based on student enrollment and teacher population at the time of the funding, and they continue as long as the law is not changed and as long as those items are funded in our state legislature.
And right now, the legislature came out this year and told us that they are decrementing those funds over the next 2 years until eventually on the 3rd year, it'll be 0. So another cautionary tale. That was this whole thing was set up in the original act that it was to get school districts paying the minimum, and then over time for the school districts to figure out how to sustain it is the bottom line. And so it came out that yes, the plan is for them to decrement that, and they have already done it this year. And then by, if I remember right, 2028, it drops to 0. Assuming there's no change in the legislature between now and then, but currently, that's the glide path for those funds.
Okay, so of course, this is the backbone of our funding. This is the important document from ADE. And so what I've done is the state foundation funding, the next page, that's line 28 on state foundation funding, the 33.985 million is what we're graphing on the next graph on page 21.
You said what line? I'm sorry.
Line 18, I believe. Line 28.
28, okay.
Line 28, the 33 in the fiscal year 26 column,
Okay.
33.985. That is the 26 data point on page 21.
Okay.
And this is a historical graph of our state foundation funding. And you'll notice we talked about this last year, and if I could use the mouse here just for a second. The first half of this graph, the trend of that data is upwards. So if you start from 2007 up to COVID 2019, the trend of this graph is going up if we were to draw a trend line. But if you start in 2019 and you come down to 2026, you'll notice the trend line is what? It's like this. It's down. So, and we talked about this last year, but what that means to us is over time, initially, the amount that they were giving us to increase our student funding each year was outpacing the amount of students we were losing, due to declining enrollment. So each year as they recalculate our enrollment and they give us increases in our student funding, we were outpacing. But since COVID, the decline of student enrollment in public schools in general and no different in North Little Rock has been trending downward. So the amount of funding the state is kicking in per student is not outpacing the amount of students that we're losing. So that's why you see the trend line down. And I put that on here just for historical perspective so that when we talk budget, people and the public can understand that while we receive a lot of funding from the state, it's not trending in the same way it has in the past. Okay. All right, so maybe I can just pause there for just a second and say, any questions?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am?
Go back to your page of 20. Will you give me a clarity on that about teachers' salaries or something?
So the bottom two lines, number 47.
I think it was, yes, sir.
Number 47 was enacted when Governor Hutchinson was in office, and they enacted a minimum teacher salary at that point where they wanted all districts to raise their starting teacher salary.
Is that the $50,000 we talking?
No, ma'am, that's the
Okay.
next line.
That's right with the 30.
That's the next line.
Okay.
So 47 was Governor Hutchinson's, I believe it was a $36,000 minimum teacher salary. And then line 48 is the minimum $50,000. Both of those lines are dedicated funds that can only be paid to licensed teachers.
Question there.
Yes.
What you having to turn in this budget, and it's due, and have we got a count of, clear count of our students? What I'm saying is, they hear you talking about monies, but they see a lot of money, but it can't be used for everything.
Right.
That's the clarity reason I came back to it.
That's right.
Because, they say, I know they got some money, but they don't see the rationalization. We've said that we need students in North Little Rock so that we can increase whatever we need to.
That's correct.
And that, because the question keep coming to me as a board member, well, how come we don't have money? Cause y'all got all that money. They don't understand that money is not our money, that money is for building. You had to put it in the treasurer
That's
to
correct.
show forth. Am I correct about that?
That's correct. There are very few unrestricted funds in school finance. Almost every fund, with the exception of 2001 and 2000, are restricted in some way.
Okay.
There's still restrictions. You can't do anything you want to do with school money. So the least restrictive money, and what we call unrestricted, as long as it's for educational purposes, is our fund 2001 and 2000. The other funding comes to us in specific categories for specific reasons. So special education funding can only be used for special ed. Title I funding can only be used for Title I schools. This teacher salary equalization in the LEARNS Act, teacher minimum salary, that can only be used to pay licensed teachers' salaries. So everything comes to, the money comes to us in quantities that look large, but when you start restricting it down, it can only be used for specific restrictive services for kids. And some of the funds have become very restrictive in that you can't hire a consultant, or you can't, pay a salary. There are lots of restrictions on different funds. So to answer your question, yes, there are restrictions, and we have to abide by those.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of restrictions, have we heard anything about the Title I, II, and III, and whether or not we're going to get it?
We have.
Okay.
And we are going to get it. The ADE released funding information on that, I believe, on the last fund about a month ago. And they said that Title I, II, III, IV, 6B, those would all be funded as previously funded. Now, obviously, there's no guarantees going forward, but for this fiscal year, it is funded, and we were breathing a sigh of relief on that.
Okay.
But we received late notice that there might be a change, which caused a little bit of panic in school finance. And I think that's why you saw Little Rock jumping through some hoops in order to try to manage that budget shortfall should that materialize.
Mr. Brown, if I can just ask a quick question. This is a follow-up to Ms. Williams' question. It's just a reminder to everyone in the public. When we talk about the minimum teacher salary at $50,000, for an example, that doesn't include everyone that has a license. For
That's
an
right.
example, if you're a pre-K teacher, that money does not go to a pre-K teacher.
That's correct.
If you're funded out of Title I, even though we require to have 50,000, that money is not allocated towards all licensed staff.
That's correct.
That would require a minimum of 50,000.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
You are correct. There was a minimum teacher salary that they gave us money for, but it only funded teachers that were paid out of the operating fund. It did not. So if you have a teacher, a reading teacher that's funded out of Title I, Title I has to fund the entire $50,000 teacher salary and benefits. The funds there on line, on that last line, 48. Yes, those funds cannot be transferred to Title I or Title III. It can't be transferred to other places where teachers may be paid. It can only be used in operating for certain licensed teachers. So that's restricted even further from licensed teachers to those paid in operating funds.
Pre-K is a great example of that. So pre-K is paid out of the ABC grant, and the ABC grant does not recognize minimum teacher salary. There's a deficit there. We pay that deficit out of operations every year.
Okay. Well, that was going to be my question. Do we have any idea how much it's actually costing us to go to 50 versus how much they're actually reimbursing us? Do we know what the shortfall is on that? across the district?
There is a shortfall, and it changes as your staffing changes. But we did calculate that initially. There was a shortfall, and I don't recall the exact number. But it creates a shortfall in your title, in your budgets, where these funds don't apply. So, when a school is, these are federal funds, they originate in Washington. Washington doesn't know and doesn't care that we have just passed a $50,000 minimum teacher salary. So their funding comes to us at the same rate, and for the same rate as it has in the past. So if you have people that are employed with the district and are in Title I positions or in a special education position, they're funded out of there. Their entire salary comes out of there. So what that does is that creates more tightness in that budget when you're having to pay more salary and fringe out of those.
Yeah, ma'am, I don't remember the total number that included federally funded teachers. But if I remember right, when we did the projection off of just pre-K alone, the delta was like $245,000 that we knew was going to have to come out of operations to fill that hole.
Okay.
And
Mr.
how are
Brown.
they, oh, I'm sorry.
You got another question?
I just was, how are they taking that away from us? Are we having it all, the whole amount until 2028? Are they gonna reduce it some next year and reduce it?
What we've learned this summer is they're going to reduce it.
Okay,
So they're trying to wean school districts off it a piece at a time.
okay.
That's assuming there's no future legislative change.
They give it and take it away.
Mr. Taylor?
Mr. Brown, so in the restricted column, all the no's, you have a little flexibility with, is that what you were saying?
On page 20.
On page 20?
Yes.
Okay.
So the no's, and you'll notice on the first two no's,
Mm-hmm.
if you look all the way to the right, Fund 2001.
Okay, that's what you're talking about. Okay.
Yes, sir. And then if you'll notice, let's see, special needs, the next green one, we don't receive. Our funding is zero.
Okay.
Then the only other green one that we receive is line 43, declining enrollment.
Mm-hmm.
That one is that one is Fund 2218. So we've got basically Fund 2000, 2001, and 2218 that we receive that is the least restrictive funding. Everything else that comes to us has a restriction on it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Question. Mr. Brown, I just have another question to ask you. You got to turn in your budget report, but is there anything left in that packet for teachers anywhere or our other staff members? Any monies? Because this is I love North Rock.
Mm-hmm.
I love teachers, and I love those under custodians and all of those.
Mm-hmm.
But in your projection, and see, we can't go around and be trying to rob Peter to pay Paul when we can turn an effective budget, and that's what you're trying to do.
Right.
But in all honesty, and I know the superintendent has been trying to work on something, and somebody told me the other day, Ms. Williams, we're going to get that raise in September. I don't think so. It wasn't a raise that came up. They need something, and I'm simply asking you, is there in that packet, is there anything for these foot soldiers that we have in these classrooms? Is there anything?
Yeah. Yes. What we'll do, I've built some numbers into this budget
Okay.
for a possible bonus that we can pay for employees, and then we'll have some additional discussions going forward about next fiscal year in terms of some salaries that we can talk about. But
Next year,
yes, for
I was-
implemented for next year. The raise, the bonus, I anticipate having some sort of discussion with the board about bonus approval for this fiscal year.
Oh,
Then talking about salary schedules that we could do
talking
something
about
with
25, 26.
in 26, 27
Okay, for
Yeah.
salaries.
for
But
salaries.
for
But bonus,
25,
bonus discussion this year,
uh-huh.
salary discussion for next year. I anticipate that, and that's something that, if you recall, before we could have those discussions, we had to get to the closure of the book and see where fiscal year 25 settled. And we've got all that done, and I've got a report in the packet for you all to look at. We're gonna look at that final settlement on 25 and talk about that. But I anticipate, after we have our internal discussions, coming back to the board with some type of proposal for a bonus, a staff bonus for this year.
I
That could,
heard you say 5 times that our enrollment is declining.
yes,
5
Yes.
times. And I know the more students we have, the better we can look at
That's
giving
correct.
teachers something.
no, if our enrollment wasn't declining, the discussions that we would have about salaries would be much better. But, the reality of where we're living is our enrollment's declining. So what we'll do is live within our means, but still try to address, paying our teachers the fair wage for being those good foot soldiers for the district.
Ma'am, it would boil down to this. Through some reorganization, some fancy footwork with the budget, cost cutting, some savings, if the board desires, we have the ability to pay a bonus sometime this year. What size we have to talk about, and we have to present that to it, but think the traditional Christmas bonus, something like that you would see in industry. Going into a next contract year, if trends stay favorable and ADE tells us how they're gonna do insurance premiums and some other stuff we just have to dig into that we just don't know yet. The intent by the superintendent is to be able to change salary schedules, that it is a raise. Now, raises is a gift to keep on giving. That's a long-term liability, and we will look at that. So just know, if we go down that road and, everybody supports it, we have to keep figuring that as we go. But with the projections right now, I feel comfortable enough to make a recommendation. Brian and I have talked about this, to look at a bonus this year and no kid and raises next year.
Yes, ma'am.
So, once we have an idea, basically it's just making sure we can sustain that increase in that bump. And
Yes,
that
ma'am.
we can keep paying everybody's salary every year.
Yep.
So, well, I guess that's really not I was looking too far long-term okay, let me just put it like this. On the flip side of that, what happens if enrollment decreases some more? Or what happens if the needs of the district change and you know what I'm saying? And
At that point, it really boils down to one thing. If you're teaching less kids, you need less staff.
Got you. Okay.
And there's ways to handle that, just
Right.
through
Yeah.
attrition as people retire.
Right.
Which is what we've
Well,
done.
yeah.
Which is what we've
Yes.
done
To
this
absorb
year.
it back in, right?
That's right.
We do,
Okay.
right, yeah,
That's
we
right.
just essentially don't, rehire through resignations and people retire or whatnots.
Yeah, sure.
We simply just don't backfill those slots.
And then you have, like, where you sit down and you kind of talk about which positions are still needed, and if those positions are needed, you can absorb that back in.
Right,
do
and remember, we talked about, a big ticket item, which is looking at a different schedule for the high school, which would net nearly about $1 million, just right there going forward.
Yeah,
I do just want to make it clear in this entire discussion, we're talking about raises for everyone.
Right.
Correct.
I just want to make sure everybody's clear. We're talking
Yeah,
about
this is
raises for
Licensed,
everyone,
classified,
just not one
Right.
or the other.
1,200, and as of today, 1,295 employees from,
I really appreciate that thought, and I certainly hope that we can do this.
Yes. That's our
But if
plan.
I don't tell me any more about declining enrollment, I don't want to hear it, because somewhere I'm passionate about those that make less than $15 an hour. I'm passionate about those who are not new teachers getting at 50,000. We, as a board, we need to find a way, rather than talking about 2 years from now. And what we're looking at, they said, well, Ms. Williams, y'all hiring everybody, how come you can't give us something? The hiring we have is because it's needed. Dr. Paluski, if he has that need, we support him in that need. But try, please, so that I can feel good. They need something.
Yeah, that's our goal.
They need something.
That's our goal. I
And
agree.
speaking of, just for clarity, timeline of when you would bring something back to us to do a bonus this year.
We can bring that,
We can,
we can do it at the October workshop.
So if we do it, I'm just thinking out the box, so hypothetically, we have the discussion in October. Hypothetically, we could possibly maybe this Christmas
Yes.
give
yes.
a bonus.
oh,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, that's the
Okay.
plan is
Right.
before,
Before, the
Okay.
before we
first.
break for the next semester.
Got it.
yeah, our plan would be to bring you a proposal in the October workshop. If the board supports it, and approves it at the October regular meeting, then we begin working on it. We would pay that prior to Christmas break.
Got it.
And it, just depending on, the workload there, we may even be able to get it out well in advance of Christmas break.
And would you come up with the percentage of the bonus? They'll be paid accordingly to the years they've been in the district, or everybody get the same thing? That's, I know
Traditionally-
part-timers do not get money, I
Right.
know that.
Traditionally, it's all full-time people in the past have been paid the same amount of bonus. It hasn't been structured based on the years that you've been in the district. If the board desires an option for that, we could look at that. But traditionally, it's been, regardless if you're classified or licensed, you receive the same
Keep the money.
bonus amount regardless, and it's not based on licensure, it's not based on years in service in the district.
Okay, and please understand me, Mr. Brown, I have a passion for everybody in this district. I just want them to have something.
Yes, ma'am. Of course.
And thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam President, members of the board, and I know you've had a chance to look at this, we're over an hour. We can continue to go slide by slide, or if you'd like us to get to the heart of this, it's entirely up to you.
Get to the heart.
If that's
Okay.
the-
Why don't we get to page, and the summary of the heart back here is the last, let's jump to page,
What page is the heart?
29.
21?
29. So here's the summary of the heart. We have, this is our projected revenue. So we have 60 million from local resources, that's our tax base. We have 6,000 from intermediate sources, that's the local government, the county sources. We have three state sources is 44.5 million. Federal sources, 15.5 million. Other sources, 1.7 million, for a total of 122 million. That's our revenue sources. And I've got it broken out because sometimes as board members, you may be asked by the public, well, how much of the revenue does the state provide for your school district? And you have a reference here. You have 37% as a state source, 13% is federal, 49% local, and then you have other intermediates that total less than 1%. So from a public perspective, if you're posed those questions, you would have, that knowledge to answer those questions. So any questions about that revenue summary? Now, I wanted to say there is a link there that you click on that goes into lines and lines of that revenue. And if what I would offer to you If you want to schedule an individual appointment with me and go through that line by line, I will be happy to do that with you. If you're satisfied of reviewing that on your own and asking me questions as you develop them, I'm good with that. But would there be any questions here on revenue?
Just real quick, the link that you're speaking of, is that on page 30?
Page
Yeah.
29.
Oh, page 29.
Mr. Brown, I think both of those I'm not sure
I
are
don't think they're
live.
working.
If you could,
Oh.
I checked them both just now.
Oh, okay.
That's
We'll
what I
have-
was asking. I was like, this is not working.
Okay, I will activate the
That's
link
cool.
for you all. I'll put it in your,
And the expenditures.
and the expenditures. Okay, well, they were live in my document. I don't know what happened in that transition, but I will update them. That will,
Yeah, and
okay, well, all links worked in my document. I don't know what happened. We'll have
that's all
to,
like, I was making.
we'll have to troubleshoot that. It sounds like a
Technology.
technology issue that's
Yep.
not Randy's issue. I'll say that, okay? All right, so on expenditures, page 30, let's just look at those really quick. So we're projecting $61 million in salary, $18 million in benefits. That benefit includes Arkansas teacher retirement at 15% and all of the payroll taxes, the FICA and the Medicare tax that we're required to pay on payroll. That also is the insurances that we provide for the matching part of employees' insurance and all the benefits that we provide to employees. $8 million in purchase and professional and technical services, $1.4 million in purchase property services, $3.2 million in other purchase services, $12.3 million in supplies and materials, and something that is under $1,000 that, you know, that looks like a big number there. Something that's under $1,000 gets coded as a general supply. So we may be purchasing things that are under $1,000 that you might not think are supplies, but that's where it gets coded. And then property services, $776,000. Other expenditures, $5.21 million, $0.21 million, and then other uses, $10 million. And I'll just say the last two, $68,000, $69,000, those are our bonded debt payments. So part of it, under $68,100, I believe, is your interest payments on your bond, and then in $69,000 are our principal payments on the bond. That's why those are large numbers in the other category. That's where the state makes us code those payments. So our bonded debt payment is actually going back up this year. We've been, if you recall, we did a refinance, and we've been in a bonded debt savings. We've been banking dollars for our construction project. This is the year in January our principal payments on our bonds reenact, and so they reactivate, and so our bond payments start increasing. So, but we have that budgeted, it's taken care of, it's all there. So I've got the budget, the expenditures broken out for you there by percentages, and then as you noted there, we do have some resources. I'll troubleshoot those and find out why those links are not working for you. But I will, before I leave tonight, I'll put the active links in your weekly board report, so you'll have those tomorrow if you want to click and dig into this.
And Mr. Brown, can we make sure that Ms. Colquitt gets that so the one that's live can be updated as well for the
Yes.
public?
Yes.
Okay.
That was a lot of good information.
All right. Everybody ready to go to part 2?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Colonel?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Let me find my,
Ah,
No, it's not by yet.
I know it. We're going to the other part. Down here. Financial management tier.
okay. And as you know, LPPC's been working on updating the salary, the stipend information. We had devised these into non-athletic stipends and athletic stipends. You've got both of those. The non-athletic, they actually printed well, or you could see those well on your documents. This sheet here was interesting. So I've provided that to you on paper and printed out and expanded so you could see that. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Yes.
Oh, that's shoot.
Okay, and the way this is devised in your packet was the first 3 pages there were the non-athletic stipends. And we have, so LPPC is proposing not only to address the amount that's paid for each position and each stipend, but also address the method in which we pay it, which is instead of it being a flat rate, it being indexed to our current salary schedule. That way, as the situation we've been in the past is that we've had a flat rate, and unless you come back and address that flat rate, which hasn't been done in a while, the flat rate becomes stagnant, and most of the time, unless it's addressed, gets forgotten about. If you attach this to the salary schedule as an index, as you contribute funds to the salary schedule to increase salaries, so will a portion of that be expensed for the stipend, the stipend as well. So they're proposing to adjust the amount that's being paid per stipend and the method in which we pay it, which is by index. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, this sheet that they had initially, and thank you, Dr. Paluski, for giving it to us in advance. But what I didn't understand the LPPC's, that little digit there, did they vote to approve what was presented?
Yes,
They
ma'am.
approved to give them the bonus?
Yes, ma'am. Well, to increase the stipends for the positions that are listed and to pay it by index. Yes,
Okay, they voted.
yes.
Where you going? Okay.
We've had some changes since this document was posted, so I just wanted you guys to realize that there was a few different numbers. It's almost exactly like this. It's a little bit less, but we did have a meeting on Monday that a couple of these numbers changed. I thought you guys had a live link to the document, but I guess a saved thing happened over the weekend, and then you got that, and then you don't have our latest updated, which is a little bit less. So I just want to make sure you knew about that.
So let me just ask a question. I know I sent them this information earlier so they could have it. Is what's in front of them the most accurate?
That's what I'm saying.
It's very close. I mean, it's like $1,000 difference.
Right,
So,
but approving it will have to be the exact.
It has to be the
right, I
exact.
thought you guys had the live link. I didn't realize you had a,
Can you
Not live link.
send the correct to Rhonda? Rhonda, can you send that out to us quickly? Is that something we can do like right now within this moment?
I can do, yeah, for sure.
Because that's what we'll have to
Correct.
approve. We have to approve
Can't.
we can't approve this.
Because I do have questions based on this document in front of me. And if you give me the answers in the new document, yay, that's 7 less questions.
Sure. All right, I just sent it.
True.
So,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's an option to just
Send it
take
back.
a little bit of a
Recess.
a break. The other as part of that, I would recommend taking this down and adding the most accurate so that the public, the board, all is under the same understanding as the same information. So that's up to the board if you want to take a
Right.
5-minute
take a
or
5
4-minute. Rhonda can do it in 3, I think.
I don't want to vote for that.
He just went 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes. Now, Rhonda, if you get it in 2,
I don't want to vote for something that's not accurate.
Correct.
Can we just jump on to construction?
That's what I was about to
Yeah, let's
ask.
jump
Can
to
we
it.
not just
And then we'll
go-
see where we are.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
do that.
So
Good
let's,
idea. And that will not be long, and then once we get through construction, if we need a 5 minutes, we'll take 5 minutes and come back, so.
Sounds good.
Okay, so with that,
Where did I go?
we'll just jump right into, we'll come back to the stipend as it relates to that. So Colonel, we will jump right into construction updates, and I believe you'll be able to click on the link,
Oh, it works.
which it, there you go. And then, yep, just give us the latest, Colonel?
Yes, sir, okay. Board, excuse me. The latest and greatest is very few updates. The current plan is demolition. We'll start on the 15th. So you'll see some buildings going down. And 3D scanning for Old Main has been complete. So then with that, they go into start behind the scenes. They go into detailed drawings, architecture work, and that kind of stuff for Old Main. That process has already started with the middle school. So the next big leap is on the 15th. Also behind the scenes, we've narrowed down to 2 vendors that we're looking at, and we'll make a decision, make a recommendation soon for our owner rep. And then every 2 weeks, owner, contractor, architect meetings start the week of the 18th. Not real big. We won't post that. That's just a series of meetings. But anytime anything physically moves or whatever, all that will be updated as it on the timeline.
Would you happen to know, because they're not here, how the time frame of when they're going to be demoing? Is it,
First thing in the morning.
first thing in the morning?
Oh, yeah, it will be.
When we're picking up kids,
No, ma'am. So it will be, they're working around pickup time and drop-off times. But however, in between those times, there'll be some noise, there'll be some heavy equipment. Actually bringing the buildings down is relatively fast. Taking dump trucks full of rubble out, that'll take a little time. And then we'll see fences moving and that kind of stuff as we start building.
So one thing that we'll do, as we know that gets ready to happen, we'll make sure we send something out to all of our community, especially individuals that live within that area. We'll try to reach as much as we can so they know if they hear.
And we'll post all that on the update as it starts.
Awesome.
No
Okay.
questions.
All right. Great job, Colonel.
Thank you.
So with that,
All
we'll
right.
take a
Thank you.
With that, we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll be back.
After these messages.
We are back in session.
Okay. Let me refresh my stuff. So,
All right, and we're on the non-athletic,
Okay.
so it's, I think, the next to the last attachment. Non-athletic, and you should have a total of 90,441.47 on your document.
Got it.
Non-athletic.
Salary stipend sheet.
Now, is this the one that changed?
Mhm.
Yes, okay. Give me a
and
moment.
can you point out to the public and everybody to the board what changed?
Yes, please. Sure. It'll save us some time.
The only thing that changed, we didn't realize, because we hadn't yet approved the final word, and so we didn't know that the document was going out to the public over the weekend. So we had some of our band folks caught an error where we had put in a head stipend pay for an assistant on the band. And so it was just an oversight, and we fixed that error. It was about $1,000 difference, so we wanted to make sure we got it right.
Okay.
Okay.
So pet band stayed the same. They still had that same decrease, but
Right.
the director was the same as the increase.
That's right.
And it comes out in the wash.
Right.
And then, because that was one of them. And then the multiple I'm sorry, I'm jumping right in. Are you okay with that?
You've started, and then I'll double back to
Okay.
Mr. Taylor.
You good over there? Come back to, where's my multiple of 10 at? Wasn't my director's. Now I may have, is that old document still available? Dang. I think it was my drama. I think, how many drama teachers did I have? 7? And then what about the auditorium manager? Does that ever change?
What do you mean by that question?
Is that a revolving individual, whoever wants to do that for the year, or is that one individual for the next 5 years, because that's what they've chosen to do?
That would be up to the supervisor of that program.
It's one person.
Right now,
for
it's
them?
one person.
Say it again.
It's one person who stays in that position.
Drama stayed the same. Okay, that's good, because that's on my non-athletic. So we'll move on to athletic whenever we're there. It's fine.
While we're on non-athletic, Mr. Taylor, did you have any questions?
No, not at this time.
Miss Miss Temple.
Yeah. Why is the recommendation for the increase year after year, why are they all so different? Is that, am I reading that wrong? Or this isn't the percentage that it's gonna be bumped up? The recommendation from LPPC, is that
I think that's the index.
the index? Why is the index different on all of these?
So the way we calculated this was we looked up every position. We found out what they were doing at the 5 different school districts that we've talked about. And so we found out how many days they were paid for, how many, what their stipend was, whether it was an index or whatever. We took that number, so let's say it was drama, and it was $4,500 at one school, $2,500 at another school. We took all those numbers, we divided it by 5, and came up with an average amount of money that people were paid, and then we turned that number into an index. And so you do that by just taking that amount, say dramas were $6,000, we took 6,000, divided it by 50,000, and turned it into an index. So that's why each number is different.
So that index is so every index on that column is derived by dividing the value of that position divided by 50,000. So each position has a different value amount, but they're all divided by 50. But that's the reason it is different for each position, because each position has a different value.
Okay.
Is that clear as mud?
Well, I understand what you did, but I guess in my mind, what I'm thinking is, if we're getting people up to market rate, we're getting them up to market rate, so we're not having to worry about that now, and now we want to keep them at market rate. Is
So
there that much
some were-
variation in every job?
So some were closer to market rates than others, yes, because some have been addressed recently. Some stipends have been, but a lot of them had not been. So a lot of them were further from market rate than the other. And so I mean, you'll see a variation in this because the value of the position is different. So a drama teacher's stipend would be different than a parental involvement facilitator. And since they're all divided by 50,000, that index amount changes. But it's going to be linked. So if you all approve this, it links to the 50,000. So as you all, in the future, as you all change salary schedules and you add money to the base of the teacher salary, then this index takes that into account, and that stipend would increase. So we don't get in a position in the future where we've set an amount and then we have to come back and negotiate that in the future.
Okay.
It'll always increase as
So
salaries.
this isn't gonna increase year over year.
No.
This is only gonna increase when the 50,000.
It's a
Okay,
one-
all right.
It's a
I got
one-time
it.
increase right now. It's
Okay.
a one-time
All right.
increase. And then we live with that, we live on that line until the base salary increases
Okay.
again.
All right, now
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Oh, my statement is that the only problem I had with it, because I had enough time to research, is that we were compared with Bryant, who has 9,000, Little Rock School District 20,000, Pulaski County School District 12,000, and here we are 7th. They got money, we don't. And had you compared the salaries to see how much money they're making, and it was not compared, that's the only thing that the chair missed doing for us, is comparing the salaries. And they got money, because when I look at their enrollment, that speaks volume to me, whereas we don't have it. And my only thing that we have increased everywhere, doing everybody right, and then the only statement that I have to make on this, we want to provide an increase for all of our employees and not just a few. And with that statement, Mr. Brown, and to the chair, what makes this recommendation fair or equitable to all employees? Thank you, that's all I have to say.
Miss Person West.
Ouch. I don't necessarily have questions. I just kind of looked at it from, as far as the district comparison. I mean, we're like a smaller district compared, so it's gonna be, to me, a little bit different there, but it is what it is.
Well, what is it?
I know we have to have some sense of comparison rate. I get that. And you have to have it something to analyze it against. But, some of the school districts that are in the particular comparison are kind of out of our league, in my opinion. But I'm only one.
Oh, well, whatever.
I just,
Could I-
you can go
Can I
ahead.
say something?
I just have one quick question. Is this retroactive? Is this for this year? If we approve it when we go into the next meeting, when does this take effect?
If you all approve it effective immediately, since LPPC has approved it,
Okay,
and
that
you
was my
approve it, it could be enacted this school year.
this
Yes.
school year. Okay. Yes, sir.
My
It's-
concern is that, how can we justify paying raises and setting it up so the index will increase as things go. And we are under the budget constraints that we have right now. What message are we sending? And who are we sending it to? I know the goal, we've all talked that we want all teachers, all staff, one team. We all have to be there together. And to just tag along with Dr. Williams, it's about 2,500 student difference in the lowest comparison. And I did a little math. That's about 20 million. If you multiply that by 8,100, am I doing my math right?
I'm not following the 21 million.
So,
You're doing ADM comparison times the
Yeah.
81?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
how's it?
Yes.
That's a pretty good difference in monies that comes.
Maybe I can add a little clarity to the comparison of our school district with surrounding ones and how they do business compared to how we do business. And I'll use Little Rock as an example because it's more than twice our size, okay? We had a $5.1 million debt that we had to fill this year, or by this year.
Correct.
Theirs was over 15 million. Obviously, they serve more kids, so they get paid, their revenue's higher, but they also have considerably much more staff. The way they got to it was by eliminating staff by simply not renewing contracts. It's a method. It's not one I'd recommend. It's not one that y'all approved. So they had no plan. What I'm getting is when you do that and you look at the total budget that we can, essentially scrape a little fluff off the top to pay stipends, pay raises, pay bonuses, that kind of stuff, based off of how we do business, it's hard to compare how we do it compared to how North Little Rock does it, or Little Rock does it, and just say, well, they've got all this extra money because they're so much bigger. The way they spend it is completely different than the way we do it. The way they reduce their staff was completely different than the way we do it. So if you want to take a snapshot or just snap that chalk line and have a time that you can compare with the surrounding school districts that we compete with, it's all proportional is what I'm getting at. So just because you're bigger doesn't mean you're better at managing your money. It doesn't mean you're better at paying your staff. It doesn't mean you got so much more now you're going to cut. I mean, we protected the classrooms when we did this. I promise you, Little Rock did not. So it's apples and oranges. Yeah, they're both round fruit, but they're both different. So the deep dive on that would be huge to be able to figure that out. And what this was an attempt to take that snapshot in time, compare with the people that we're competing with, and come up with the best estimate without really, we don't have the ability to compare apples and apples.
So question,
And
I'm
I know-
sorry.
I know Coach wanted to say
Yeah,
something
so,
if he may.
thank you, boss. It seems like everybody has that question. So there are several things that went into why we chose those 5. When we look at Little Rock and the county, yes, their enrollment's larger, but they also have multiple high schools. So when you divide that out across a high school, it looks different than, Sylvan Hills, Maumelle, Mills, Pulaski, Robinson, all in Pulaski County School District. That's 4 high schools versus 1. So it's kind of different, but their coaches, and on the athletic side, it's a different comparison than just that number of kids in one high school. It's also where, in the world we're living in, we compete for coaches, student athletes, teachers, everybody in those 5 places. That's where kids are leaving, and teachers and families are going to. And there's some different reasons why that happens, but they're going to Cabot, they're going to Bryant, they're going somewhere in the county, they're going somewhere in Little Rock or Conway. Those are, in the athletic side, those are also all the teams that we compete with. So for example, if our coaches are making half what another coach makes and we have 5 less, but on Friday night we expect a different outcome, That's kind of where Arlen's was on. So we're not the highest anymore, but we're not the highest, but we're not the lowest anymore. We're just in the middle. So those big districts like Bryan are still outpaying us, but we're just not. It's not a 10,000 to 2,000 drastic. Now it's more 10,000 to 5,000 or 6,000, and we're kind of getting closer, but we're not where they're at because we don't have the money for that. So we try to snap a line in the middle and get off the bottom so that we can get high quality teachers and coaches and retain them. So we could have compared like Jonesboro's almost identical to us in size. They're in northeast Arkansas. They have a totally different set of things they're up against. And so those 5 districts are the closest to us in our competitive range.
And at the end of the day, and just really to everybody out there listening, a stipend is for extra work. Teachers that do it are on a 190-day contract. You can't do that and ask them to do all this extra stuff in 190 days. It is not possible. So this is extra, supplementing incomes or, their contracts because of the extra work that they do in all these different programs. The only other way to get around that was don't do those programs anymore.
I think you're misunderstanding me. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. What I'm saying is, until we can do it the right way and give it to everyone, I think that would be a better idea.
We can't give it to everyone, sir, because there's only one dance troupe, and you only need one dance troupe leader. So we're not going to come on the classified side and give, somebody who works in our HR department, a stipend to be the dance troupe leader.
No, I'm not talking about give them a stipend. Give everyone more money, if it will. We're giving some people stipends, some people nothing. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, I agree with
I
you.
understand. Don't give HR, but let me just say one more thing. I understand we are competing for limited resources. I understand that. But our goal, it says, our community, our schools, where your future begins. That's our statement, right? The mission, the North Little Rock School District will prepare all students for their future. So that's all teachers, all students. So what are we doing for all teachers and all students?
As we addressed earlier, when we did the budget book, we believe, as sitting right now, without other consultation with the board, that we can do a one-time bonus, let's say the Christmas bonus or whatever, this year, and the way the budget for next year, this is long-term though, is projected, and as soon as we know what ADE is going to do with insurance premiums, we currently believe that we could, if the board approves it, work out money to have an across-the-board pay raise.
Anything that says all, I'm willing to consider.
Across the board, all 1,295 employees.
Okay, but this is not all.
So
Mr.
let me just back this up.
May I
Yes,
just
sir.
address one issue there? So we may frame this differently because all teachers and all staff, we're talking about evaluating that for next year. So that would apply to everyone. I would like to make the point that this is a comprehensive list of teachers that have agreed to do work that's beyond their normal contract day. So what we're talking about here is addressing the stipends for this extra work for all teachers that have agreed to do that. So in a sense, we are addressing, I feel like we're addressing your concern in that we're not just picking 5 people on here and giving raises to 5 people on the stipend list. So what we're doing is addressing the entire stipend list. We've got non-athletic and we've got athletic, but that is 100% of the people that have agreed to do extra duties beyond their normal teaching contract that requires time and effort to perform these. So, I mean, just in that would be my frame of mind on that, is we are addressing all of them we are addressing all of them right now. Not all employees, because not all employees have agreed to do additional work beyond their contract.
Correct.
Can I make one point? I also want to just speak in terms of just cost of living adjustment. These numbers have not been looked at, to my understanding, since 1992. That is over 30 years that these people have had a flat, fixed rate that has not changed. And some of these folks that have got these stipends have been in our district for many, many years doing work for pennies an hour. So it shows a good faith response by the board to say we value the extra hours that you're putting in. We understand that you have not had a cost of living adjustment in many, many years, and we respect and appreciate the work you're doing. And so for that reason, I myself have put in hundreds of hours of volunteer time into finding out the true numbers that our other districts are doing so that we can get our staff to an average amount of pay. And I know that Mr. Ballon has also worked with me on this. It is an extensive effort. I'm not going to repeat this effort. It takes a lot of time, and these numbers will change next year because athletic directors are calling him, asking him for their numbers and how we've done this, and they want to give their people raises. So these numbers are just a moment in time. This moment in time, they're the average of what is available around us that we are competing for teachers and students. And so we just ask that we know that we don't have money for everybody right now. We know we don't. We would love to we want to see everybody do that. Our staff, our LPPC, know that this money will come off the top of all raises that were expected to be given to certified staff. And they're willing to do that because they understand that when these program enrollments increase, our overall enrollment will increase, and which will help our school district because our kiddos come here for our extracurricular activities.
Okay. I want to say thank you so much for all the time you've worked on this, because since I have been on this board, I have asked us to address the stipend issue. It's come to us piecemeal, people wanting their person to get, just like what you're saying. It wasn't everybody. This one got a raise and this one didn't. And it's way overdue.
Thank you.
Way, way overdue.
Yes, it is.
It's unfortunate that the money in there just go across the board, but I don't know that we can necessarily think of it that way because we have other people in the same situation as these stipends, like the custodians and the bus drivers, who are undervalued. And we never seem to get them up to market. They're not up to market.
Paraprofessionals.
I mean, I'm just saying there's others, so I think that we have to be willing to, I think everybody can get a piece of the pie. They just may not get as big a piece because there's some things that need to be fixed. And
But can
it's
I
a
add
process.
to, we've done the work. It takes a lot of work. To produce these numbers. And so somebody in the district has to care enough about our paraprofessionals and our custodians to do that work and do that research. Because when people care, we can make change. But if you sit around and complain all the time that you're not getting raises, but you're not doing the research and you're not finding out what is a fair market value and advocating for yourself and your people, change doesn't happen. If we sit around and wait on somebody else to do it, it's not going to happen. I made that Excel sheet that you're looking at. I made those phone calls. Okay? It takes somebody who's willing to do the work so that people have some justice in their lives. Okay? We can sit and look and point fingers all day long about who should be doing it. We have to look at ourselves and figure out whose job is it to do? Are we sitting around waiting on somebody else to do it?
I appreciate you as well because this was time consuming. And we have been asking for this for some time.
Yes.
And the fact that you volunteered basically to take on the task to do this, to have this done, it's very much appreciative.
Thank you.
And so I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'd also, go ahead.
Go on.
Mr. Taylor, I don't have a crystal ball, but I can almost guarantee you that the enrollment that we're seeing going up will almost support the ask that we're having just in athletics. So my point being, the number of student athletes that are staying here and not leaving or coming in because of things we're doing, because of high quality teaching and coaching, more or less covers the cost of what we're asking of that fair market value. And there's data to support that. And so, I don't just want to get a fair price. I want these coaches to want to be here and be happy to be here and want to stay here and send their kids here and continue to put roots here. And one way to do that is to show them that we see you, we hear you, we appreciate you, and we know that we got to get this right. And so, yeah, I think I wish we could do it too, but I'm not over the teachers. This is my area, and this is who I advocate for, and so that's kind of why we're here.
I guess, but who am I supposed to advocate for?
That's your decision.
No, I didn't ask you.
Okay.
Who am I supposed to advocate for?
Everyone.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But when there's only so much of the pie, we can take off a bite of the elephant at a time. We cannot solve every problem all in one meeting. We have to solve one problem at a time, and this is one problem that can be solved.
Can I finally say something real quick, please?
Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say, when the two of you all mentioned a few minutes ago, I mean, I see it a little bit different now, because I guess what I was looking at was the standpoint of enrollment only versus factoring in, I just lost my train of thought, factoring in like the, not just the enrollment, that plays a part in it, yes, but when you look at the actual jobs of what these people are doing as far as their actual stipends and just kind of getting but I guess I was looking at it initially as just enrollment numbers first. So thank you for that clarity. So it's like a whole ballpark thing, and I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. And one second. And when you add, sorry, I keep jumping in, but
Hold on, man.
Miss Angela. So and I think too, like, yes, say Little Rock, they have more students, so they have more money, but they also have more coaches and teachers. The average is the average. Mm-hmm. Whether you have 50 coaches or you have across 3 high schools in Little Rock and you have 150 coaches, that dollar, they need more money to sustain 150 coaches versus 50 coaches, for example.
Mr. Taylor, you are advocating for everybody, and this is part of that. So remember, the bottom line with this is we are paying people to do extra work. 190 days is 190 days. If you're your assistant football coach, you're working easily 230 days. It's a 190-day contract, so we are paying them extra to do the extra work that assistant football coach is also teaching math, as opposed to just a 190-day math teacher, because that's all they wanted to do. They didn't want to be a coach. That teacher made that decision. They did what they had to do, and they're like, hey, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the drama club. I don't want to be the sponsor and do extra time for the chess club or the whatever club. Stipends is to pay for our folks for doing this extra work. We can't make somebody be a football coach. They just do that because they want to, and for the extra time, a stipend compensates them. With the advocacy that you talked about earlier is, there again, looking at doing a bonus this year and raises next year. That is for everybody on top of this. And that's for people, it doesn't matter if they're 190 days or 245 or whatever.
Go ahead. No, I'll wrap us up.
I love the way that Mr. Brown has framed this, because we are looking at a category that we are including everybody that's in that category.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that in the past, we did not do that. We had some kind of a stipend committee, and people would put in a request to have their stipend increased, and so it was very uneven on how that occurred. This is including everybody that is in the stipend category, and I like that.
Mr. Paluski, would you wrap up the
Sure.
workshop?
So I want to summarize with this, and that is, when you look at the grand scheme of things, you had tasked myself and our staff, probably since I've gotten here in 2020, that we've got to do something about stipends, and it's long overdue. You've asked us to bring you a proposal. You've asked us to work with LPPC and get to the fine details of that. I think Ms. Stumpenhouse brings a great point in that this hasn't been touched in 30 years. So I may have been an employee over 30 years that got a raise, but I didn't get anything in this category in which I've done extra work. And call it the sins of the past, call it whatever it is. Our duty and responsibility is to do what you ask us to do, bring you a proposal, be fiscally responsible, and let's not forget, we're looking at declining enrollment, and we've had this conversation, you know, it's sitting in my office. And there's a whole list of strategies to grow enrollment. And the first thing on that list is extracurricular activities. Sports, dance, after school, all of that is a step in the right direction to continue to grow enrollment. This year, and Coach can attest this, and I'll leave it at this, I've signed more CSAP forms in the last 2 months than I have in the last couple years. And that's students that are transferring in, and a lot of that is part of the extracurricular programs that we have. And I am an advocate of our extracurricular programs, and I am an advocate of doing things when we can do them. We can't do everything all at one time.
And before you leave, I gave Ms. Stumpenhouse her flowers. Coach Ballon, thank you for everything that you've done.
He likes flowers too.
I wanted to give you yours too. All
Can I
righty.
speak now? Hi.
Yes.
I'd like to say something. Thanks. Hi. So going through this, thank you for your work, both of you. And this does include everyone. So we're fighting for everyone, for those who are uneducated and didn't know that. So everyone is included in that.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
So with that
Madam
being
Chair.
said,
Madam
Brian,
Chair.
how
Hold on,
many
just a second.
students
Madam
have
Chair.
increased
Let her finish first,
with
and then
this,
you can say what you got to say.
sports? Dr. P just made a comment that students have increased coming in, and that is with sports switching lanes. Pulaski County coming to us, Little Rock coming to us, Cabot coming to us. Do you have that number off the top of your head?
I'm going to defer to you. She's asking about how many new students have we received for
It's
that
what
they're involved in athletic
Oh,
programs.
well, I don't have the number in front of me. I can tell you the forms that he signed, but that doesn't account. And I don't know how we would even obtain this, but there's a lot that lived here to begin with that were going somewhere else that came back home. A lot. And also brother and sister, cousin, that number, it just kind of spider webs. So just the number alone that just transferred from somewhere that came in legally, I could give you that number. But the ones that were here all along that left, that decided to come back, that brought their family with them, I can try to work on that, but it's a large number.
So the street committee has told me that number is 35 for those that have come from other districts, and 67 is the total number that has come for just sports. And that is the street committee talking to me with that. So taking those numbers alone and taking your ADM, I see that it takes care of this. So including everyone that is doing extracurricular duties, giving it all students an opportunity who want to partake in the extracurricular sports and drama and band and yearbook and everything else, they're included in this. So by fighting for all of them within this stipend that we have requested over years, thank you for that. So I see the increase in numbers already. And the year has just began. We ain't even had no more than 3 football games. We have not even played a basketball game. We have not played a softball game. Have we done track yet? We started track? Soccer? We haven't. We didn't even competed in band yet. or chess and wrestling. So the point is, thank you. Thank you for including all, because I see all here. I'm reading your book. Thank you for including them. I'm seeing esports. I had to be educated on esports. Didn't even know that was a thing. Thank you for that. Thank you for robotics. Robotics! Thank you for that. So with that being said, thank you for including all in this.
Mr. Taylor, will you close out the workshop with your statement?
Just give me 1 second. This is the last thing. Again, like I said earlier, I think it's a good idea. However, the only thing I've heard so far is how it's helping the teachers and athletics and different clubs and things. But you know, we have students who are not doing very well in several of our schools that could use additional resources. But what we're talking about, and I think it's like 642 students that are in athletics.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure the exact
Okay.
number.
Athletic stipends, 642 students. Okay? After-school programs. Do we have any? We do. One. How many schools do we have that are not at a passing grade? Okay. That's all I'm saying. I have to advocate for everyone. I think it's a great idea, but we're not in a position right now. Maybe if we do some things differently, that we will become in that position. But that's my only thing.
That concludes our workshop. We're about to go into our meeting. I call this meeting to order. Roll call, Ms. Rhonda. Here.
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 The next item on the agenda is public comments. Per Arkansas Code 6-13-619 and according to Act 902 of 2025, citizens who desire to speak during public comment must sign in prior and will be called to the podium. Speakers must meet one of the following criteria according to Act 902 and listed on the sign-in sheet. Thanks, Vanna.
No problem.
Reside within the school district, parent or legal guardian of a student in the district, or be employed by the district. Public comments is not a question and answer period, and as such, school board members and the superintendent do not respond to the public comments during a meeting, while we do encourage you to speak respectfully and professionally. Further, citizens will have no more than 3 minutes to speak and will not be allowed to make comments that shall prejudice the board of directors concerning student or personnel matters that could come before the board for disciplinary or employment of considerations, or that is in conflict with other district policies or laws. Further, public comments that include slanderous remarks about the school district, employees, or that would violate the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, are strictly prohibited. Personally identifiable information, discussion of student educational records, or reference to student directory information is not permitted during the public comment period. Speakers who violate these guidelines will receive a single warning and be respectfully asked to redirect their remarks. Should the speaker continue in violation, the board president will end the speaker's time and move on to the next individual. If the public comment goes beyond 30 minutes in total, the board may require a public comment that go beyond the 30 minutes and are not about matters that are on the meeting's action item to be held after the other agenda items. The new law passed, so that's why I have to read all that. Yeah, no, that the Act 2025, when it came out, I'm trying to stay out of jail, so I'm reading it. Here we go. First comment, Kim Stanley. Timekeeper, please.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Kim Stanley, and I'm a proud graduate of North Little Rock Northeast. I'm a proud parent of 3 graduates from North Little Rock High School, and I have had the privilege of teaching at North Little Rock High School for the last 26 years. I'm here tonight to urge you to pass this proposal for these stipends. I currently serve as the department chair for the Theater Arts Department, as well as the debate coach, and as the business director for all of our main stage productions. The stipend that I began receiving in 1999 has not increased, while expectations and cost of living have grown substantially. Theater arts continues to do more with less. When I started at North Little Rock High School, our department was twice the staff across the split campuses. Today, with fewer staff, we still provide and expand opportunities for students. Just a few examples. Kristen Pitts, our theater arts dance teacher and dance troupe teacher, built her program from the ground up. She maintains high standards, continually expands curriculum, and brings guest artists in so that students can access these experiences that they otherwise would not have. Kelsey Wolf, our costume and makeup director, also serves as our thespian troupe leader. The amount of paperwork for this job warrants a stipend by itself. Yet she also travels with students, dedicates countless hours, and helps them earn recognition on the state competition. Michael Kletcher, a longtime member of our department, has supervised the auditorium for district and community events for over 20 years, often without additional compensation. There are band concerts, choir concerts, meetings, award ceremonies, and you'll find Michael Kletcher or another theater arts staff member providing support behind the scenes. And as the debate coach, research shows that our programs matter. In 2020, there were 2 researchers at the University of Michigan that found that debate participation raised GPA and SAT scores and also increased graduation. This directly hits the district's goals of achievement and college readiness, and we do bring in students to this district. But it isn't just about theater arts. Across this district, there are countless staff members that spend hours outside the classroom. This review is not about excessive pay. It's about fairness. It's about recognizing expertise and valuing the sacrifice staff do every day. This stipend review has been discussed for so many years. I've been here. It is time to take action. And I would like to thank Sarah Stumpenhouse and the LPPC committee for their hard work. Passing this review tonight would send a clear message from the board that they value educators, across all departments, and they're committed to equitable compensation for the crucial work that is being done every single day for our students and our community. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Gwen Jackson.
over the past quarter, the district has undergone a restructuring process that resulted in the reorganization of certain positions and the elimination of others, including vacant positions that will not be filled. This action was necessary to generate cost savings in order to address a projected $5 million deficit stemming from declining student enrollment and the reduction of external funding sources. It has been reported that the district successfully realized that $5 million deficit in savings required to close the immediate deficit. However, an additional $45 million in savings will be needed to place the district in a stronger financial position, one that would allow for consideration of raises, bonuses, and other forms of compensation. While I am not opposed to such measures in principle, I must raise concerns regarding the timing of their approval, particularly while we are still actively reviewing items across the 3 buckets for potential reductions. Over the past year, we have been consistently reminded of the $5 million shortfall. Given this context, it is important to ask whether the district has truly stabilized its financial position to the extent that we can responsibly begin approving additional expenditures for stipends, raises, and bonuses. A more prudent course of action may be to focus first on moving from cost savings to a sustainable surplus, thereby better positioning the district to meet both its current and future fiscal obligation. If our highest priority is indeed the academic achievement of our students, then it is imperative that we carefully evaluate how each financial decision directly supports that goal. Our students remain our greatest asset, and every fiscal action that we take should reflect our commitment to their long-term success.
Thank you. That concludes those that signed up for public comments. So we're down to executive closed session. Executive closed session per North Florida School District Policy 1.14A, stating that private or closed discussions by the board may occur as part of a regular or a special board meeting. Executive sessions may be held only for the purpose of considering employment, appointment, promotion, demotion, disciplining, or resignation of an employee, or to discuss matters of pupil punishment if requested by the parent or legal guardian. No resolution, agreement, or motion considered in the executive session shall be legally binding unless the board reconvenes in public session and presents the item for vote of the membership. Finally, Arkansas Code Title 25, Chapter 19, Section 106(2)(c)(1) states, the specific purpose of the executive session shall be announced in public before going into executive session. Please join me in the executive closed session for discussing the following: employment, appointment, promotion, demotion, disciplining, or resignation of an employee. We are back in session. We're down to action items. The first one is 5.1, employment of personnel.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
so move that we accept action item 5.1, employment of personnel.
Second.
It has been properly moved in second that we accept employment of personnel. Being that it is employment of personnel, there can be no discussion. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's adopted. 5.2, Academies of Central Arkansas Partnership Proposal.
Madam-
President,
Yep. Go right ahead.
I move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation of the Academies of Central Arkansas Partnership proposal.
Second.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second that we approve the Academies of Central Arkansas Partnership Proposal. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's passed, adopted. 5.3, the superintendent goals for 2025.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
move that we accept the superintendent goals as presented in 5.3.
Second.
It has been properly moved in second that we accept the superintendent's goals for 2025. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is adopted. The
you.
board governance policies.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
move we accept the revisions to the board governance policies as presented in 5.4.
It has been properly moved in second that we accept 5.4 board governance policies. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. 5.5 athletic and non-athletic stipend proposal.
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
I so move that we accept the athletic and non-athletic stipend proposal as presented this evening.
Second.
It has been properly moved in second that we accept the athletic and non-athletic stipend proposal. Roll call, Ms. Rhonda. I approve.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
It passes. Now there is a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I so
Yes.
move that we accept 6.1, a motion to adjourn, up out of here.
Second.
It has been properly moved in second that we adjourn. Is there any discussion? All those in favor
Absolutely
say
not.
aye.